In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to simulate damping and choked percussion effects in EastWest symphonic percussion sounds by taking advantage of the particular way that these sounds respond to CC11. Now, CC7 controls the volume in the usual way, and CC11 also lets you control volume, but it does it with kind of a laggy response, which is perfect for simulating damping and choking. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to start with an undamped timpani note. Nothing unusual there. So now I'm going to turn on a region that has some CC7 data in it. And as you can see, it starts out at full volume and then slams down to 0. Listen to what happens when that happens. So with CC7 making a very sudden transition from full on to full off, the sound stopped dead cold. And if we look at a recording of that sound, we can see for sure how the ending cuts off abruptly. So that's the expected behavior with CC7, and now for comparison, I've converted the CC7 data to CC11. It has the same controller curve. Well, it's more of a rectangle, but you know what I mean. It starts at maximum level and then suddenly bangs down to 0. But here's what happens when that data is sent as CC11. So when the CC11 values made a sudden transition from full on to full off, the sound took its time tailing out. And sure enough, if we look at a recording of this sound, we can see it's got a nice little tail on it. And this kind of laggy response is perfect for simulating damping on all manner of percussion instruments. And the reason is because when these instruments are damped, they don't just suddenly stop vibrating like somebody hit a mute switch. There's always going to be some overring. And here's an example of where I used this laggy response of CC11 to simulate damping on timpani, chimes or tubular bells, a mallet roll cymbal, and piatti. Two hits, nice and tight. Now I'm going to mute the regions that contain the CC11 data, and you'll hear the cymbals and the tubular bells and the timpani ring out as they normally would. Now I'm going to turn those regions back on again, and here's what it sounds like with the damping simulation. Now I'm going to solo the cymbal part and mute the CC11 data so you can hear the cymbals as they originally sounded. There are two cymbals. There's a mallet roll cymbal with a tail, and there's a piatti hit. And here's what they normally sound like. Now I'm going to turn on the CC11 data, and now the tails of both cymbals sound like they've been choked. For the mallet roll cymbal, I performed the damping action by moving a slider on my controller that outputs CC11. Notice that the CC11 curve starts at a value of 127, and that ensures that the note starts at full volume. And here we see a reflection of my moving the slider down to 0. And you can see by the shape of the curve that I didn't exactly slam my slider down to 0. I moved it quickly down to 0. And I did that because, well, had I slammed it down to 0, the damping effect would have sounded too abrupt. So even though the response of CC11 is laggy, when you use this technique, you want to make sure that the transition from full on to full off is drawn out long enough to produce a natural sounding result. And speaking of drawing, as I said earlier, I performed a movement on my CC11 slider to produce the damping for the mallet roll cymbal, and that resulted in this sort of natural looking, sort of organic looking shape. But for the piatti, I drew in the response curve right in my DAW. And as you can see, it's just a straight line, and it does the job just fine. So you don't have to perform these kind of damping simulations, although it's fun to do and feels very organic when you do it. You can draw them in as well. I used the same approach to choke the first two tubular bell hits, and also to tighten up the first two timpani hits. And when you put it all together,